Hello, I would like to welcome everybody to this sort of special edition of the Mayor's Breakfast, even though it's not Friday and it's not a breakfast. But we've had a lot of requests from residents asking, what are we doing to prepare ourselves? What's going on here in the valley, especially around the wildfires? And I thought it was very appropriate that we bring today our fire chief, Chief Paige Myers, here to talk to us about the things they're doing. We have Captain Carlson from our police department, who's very involved in disaster preparedness, here to talk. But we want to lay the groundwork. We hope to accomplish over the next 15 to 20 minutes is to give you a sense of the things that the city and the fire district and others are doing to prepare ourselves for any possible natural disasters, in particular fires, and to give you an idea of ways you can get information about what's occurring so you can feel up to date and know where to turn for information when you need it. So it's my pleasure to introduce at this time Chief Paige Myers. Chief, thank you for the amazing work you've been doing, not just here, but also around the state. So Chief, let us know what's going on.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you, Mayor, for having us. We rely on getting information out to the public through a lot of the means that the city does. And Captain Carlson does a good job of getting information out, even on our behalf. So we really appreciate the partnership with the city and really the opportunity to be involved in this, because I think information and communication is key, no matter what it is. But in an emergency situation, when people are smelling smoke and seeing what we're seeing, which we haven't seen in decades, we know that anxiety is high. So thank you for allowing us to be here and communicate some of the things we think are important. What we're going to go over today is just a little bit about what we've been doing as far as the San Ramon Valley Fire Protection District locally and in helping our neighbors. And then we'll also give some oversight of the state and what some of the big fires and some of the numbers are currently. So I'd like to just take an opportunity and introduce two people. You heard one of them coughing, who's out on the front line, which I find ironic. He's coughing and he's out on the field, so it makes sense. And that's Chief Dan McNamara. I don't know if you can see him. He's on my screen. He's not there, but he's in the field. He's been on pretty much since these fires started. We've been sending him out as a liaison, as an agency rep, and on the front lines. So he'll be talking about the front lines, both on in our county recently in the Morgan Territory fire, and then also he's currently in the SNU unit over in Alameda County. So he's our agency rep. So he'll speak a little bit about that, but I want to turn it over to my ops chief, Chief Frank Drayton, and he'll go over some of the larger numbers, and then we'll get down in the weeds with Dan McNamara. So Chief Frank Drayton, who is the operations chief here with the San Ramon Valley Fire Protection District.
Yeah, Chief, I'll just give you a brief overview of what's going on in the state. As of this morning, there's approximately 560 what's considered larger grass fires throughout the state. Once they hit a certain threshold where life or property is at a high risk, that gets categorized as a separate classification. So as of this morning, we have 23 active fires going, and we added 5 since this morning. So we have a total of 28 throughout the state. Notable fires in our area is the SEU complex. A complex is when you have multiple fires in a generalized area that the expectation is one management team will manage all of the incidents. Generally what happens is they all actually burn together into one. But we have the SEU incident, and just for example, the state keeps track of the top 20 largest wildfires in the state's history. Right now, the SEU and the LNU is the Napa Solano incident, are number 2 and 3 on that list of 1 to 20. For example, the LNU is at, it's past this now, but as of yesterday morning was 350,000 acres. It's burned 871 structures, and there's been 4 deaths. The SEU incident is 347,000 acres with 12 structures lost with 0 deaths. So those are the main 2 incidents around us. And I'll just leave it at that and let Danny talk about what he's doing out in the field.
Oh, and real quick, let me just jump in real quick. And just to put it in perspective, that's when you're dealing with the SCU, you're dealing with Mines Road, right, Chief, in Alameda County, as well as, or are we talking about the Morgan territory? Just to give people I'm sorry, the Morgan Hill area. Which area?
So the SNU is Contra Costa County, Alameda County. There's a Morgan territory, and also the mines incident. There's a large area in Elko as well.
So those are the ones I
Alameda
just want to make that point. So the folks, they see the smoke, they realize that these are multiple areas around us, and that's why they're getting smoke from all angles. And it's been for the San Francisco Bay Area. I think it's safe to say Chief Drayton is one of those fires that's once in a generation. I mean, last time I felt like this, there was the Oakland Hills fire, and you had a lot of smoke from that. So anyway, and then I'm going to let Dan take over locally. But Dan, as you go over what you're doing in the field, if you have any information on the, as far as Santa Clara County, I know that there's some concern as to the main fire there. We're kind of hunkering down here, but it seems like the Morgan Hill area, the Santa Clara area, they're having some issues. If you could touch on that at the very end, I'd appreciate it.
Correct. So good afternoon. I'm Dan McNamara. I'm currently in the agency rep for San Ramon Valley Fire at the SCU complex in Alameda County. I'll start out real quick. On the night of the 16th, they had the lightning move through. They got several fires in the Los Vaqueros area, with one of them being the deer fire that started. At the end of the day, it was 3,100 acres total that came up to the back of the San Ramon Valley Fire Protection District's boundaries. That fire currently is in patrol status, which means one engine is assigned and that there is no threat to our district boundaries as of now. Moving on down, as the chief was saying, the SCU complex fire is kind of unprecedented. From the top to the bottom, it's 68 miles long, and it spans 7 counties. So it was kind of a logistical nightmare trying to get everyone involved and on the same page, but it's working out well. The threats currently are to the south end of the fire, which is, believe it or not, the 152 area, Pacheco Pass. So people are a little nervous because their friends in the east side of San Jose, east side of Morgan Hill are getting evacuation warnings, and it's making people uneasy as it would. But currently right now, there's still warnings out for the southern part of the Alameda County area, the South Livermore, South Pleasanton. But we're working in conjunction with Livermore Pleasanton Fire, and they know that if they need us, we're going to be there for a surge protection if it does come in. But right now, the threat's minimal. The bulk of the fire is in that 152 area off of Pacheco Pass. Any questions, Chief?
I'd ask the mayor, do you have any questions about that so far, what we've gone over?
Nope. Good stuff.
Yeah, and I think, Dan, Chief McNamara has been out on the front line. He tends to be our guy that we send out to a lot of these fires. He loves this stuff. So he doesn't draw the small straw. He always is going, I'll take it. I'll just take it. But he's done a great job. I will tell you, just to add, and I don't want to cut you off, Chief McNamara, but we have been very actively involved. Single unit resources, task forces, strike teams. The 9 Bay Area counties, it's unusual, but typically when we're sending folks out, it's usually, as you know, Northern California, Southern California. The 9 Bay Area counties, we have our moments, but this has been very unusual for us. And so the balancing act that we've done, and I think it's been a great job by Chief Drayton in making sure that he keeps enough resources here at home. So I think it's important to note that we're fully staffed. We actually are fully staffed with 2 additional units. So we are upstaffed just to be prepared. And Chief McNamara, I don't know if you have any comments on this, but it should be noted that when this fire hit at its size, there were a lot of nerves locally because, quite frankly, CAL FIRE spread thin. We're spread thin. And we have lightning strikes that are supposed to be coming in over from Sunday to today. And fortunately, those were offshore, so we didn't see that. But we were fortunate to have firefighters that really answered the bell, came back to work like they always do. And we were also able to be out there helping out our neighbors that needed our resources desperately. Anything else on that, Chief McNamara?
The only thing I would add is just to put it in perspective, normally California has a really robust master mutual aid system. And if I ask for 100 fire engines today in an hour, in 2 hours I would get 100 fire engines. Unfortunately, from August 15th until the 22nd, the state of California burned 1.2 million acres. Compared to all of last fire season, they burned just shy of 260,000 acres. So we were stretched thin, but everyone was able to do what they did and keep them without, serious injury, serious, loss of structures. There were quite a few structures lost, but in the whole scope of things, it should have been a lot worse. When I left base camp this morning, there was engines from Texas, Oregon, and Idaho, and they're still coming in. So hopefully in the next couple of days, we'll be able to get our arms around it.
Yeah. And then the only other thing I was going to add, if Chief Drayton doesn't have anything, and I think it's important, Mayor, and it's probably your point, one of the main points, and hopefully Captain Carlson will touch on this too. We have, like I said, a robust social media feed. We work closely with the San Ramon Police Department. They do a great job. They're phenomenal at getting information out to our community. Really appreciate them. But the big thing, I think, from our perspective, and Chief McNamara and Chief Drayton, I think, would agree, when in doubt, you have to evacuate. So I think it's important, as we got stretched thin, we know that there's been some communication. You get on the news and you see the smoke and you think it's in your backyard, but I think it's important that people follow the social media aspect of it and what the city's put together. But also, when in doubt, evacuation is okay. Trying to figure it out later on is better. And more important than that, and Chief McNamara will tell you this because I've seen him on video, trying to get people to leave an area that's getting ready to be overrun with fire. When ordered to evacuate, it's so important that our citizens leave. We don't want to have any loss of life. We understand people's life work and their homes matter. They matter terribly to us, but we're more effective when they're out of the way and we can get in and attack the fire aggressively. We don't want to be held up trying to navigate evacuations over putting fires out, because if that becomes a real test of our ability to get to the fire, just trying to get people out. So it really stops us from doing our job effectively. But from a safety standpoint, we really want people to understand that aspect because we can rebuild. We don't want to, and that's not our goal. We'll do everything we can to not have that happen, but we can't replace life. And we are absolutely dedicated to that message. And I would say that's kind of one of our biggest safety concerns and safety messages. Anything on that, Chief McNamara or Chief Drayton?
Well said, Chief.
I agree. Chief, I think, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, one of the tools I think is really effective is on your cell phone, you can download an app called PulsePoint.
Absolutely.
And I think it's PulsePoint. You can go to the App Store, get PulsePoint, put down the San Ramon Valley District as to follow this agency. And I believe if any resident has any question about any fires within our district, it'll always be posted on PulsePoint.
Yes, it will, absolutely. And even neighboring. I mean, you can follow our neighbors as well and get an idea what's going on if you're trying to pinpoint it.
So if you're not tech savvy or don't follow Twitter or you're not sure where to navigate, you can instantly pull up your phone, go to PulsePoint, click it, and it will show you if there's, so if you see a lot of smoke, because we get a lot of people calling concerned about smoke, is there a fire nearby? They can check very quickly on pulsepoint.org. And I want to compliment, because that application, which is now nationwide, some 2,000, 3,000 agencies use it, was created by the San Ramon Valley Fire District. So compliments to you guys and a great program. But stick around, Chief, because I'm going to ask Captain Carlson to step in here and talk about both communications and how the city and our fellow agencies are talking about and working with disaster preparedness.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Mayor. I appreciate the invitation to be here this afternoon. Before I even get started, as a member of the San Ramon Police Department and also someone who lives in the San Ramon Valley, thank you to all of the firefighters, everybody in the San Ramon Valley Fire Protection District that's gone out, been a part of battling these wildfires throughout the state. It means so much. Just as a resident and somebody in law enforcement who lives here, thank you very much for everything you guys are doing. One of the things that we have that is so beneficial for us is we have such a good working relationship with the Fire Protection District. One of the groups that we have that's formed that goes throughout the whole San Ramon Valley is the Citizen Corps Council. That's an emergency preparedness and disaster preparedness group that encompasses pretty much all entities of governmental agencies within the valley. It has people from Danville, people from the school district, from Contra Costa County, City of San Ramon, Fire Protection District. We're all a part of this group where we maintain a very good, robust communication network with each other to ensure that we're all aware of what's going on within the valley. And our goal when it comes to crisis communication, and that's a lot of the questions that we've had over the smoke coming from, and we see it on our social media feeds, we see it via email requests that come in. The PulsePoint is a great resource for people where they can open up an app on their phone and get a quick glimpse of exactly what's going on within the district. And, you guys cover within the Fire Protection District so much area from South Walnut Creek all the way down to the county line that it gives people a really good working knowledge of what's going on. But what I wanted to touch on here, besides that collaborative group, is I wanted to mention just for a brief moment about our crisis communication plan when it comes to the city of San Ramon. We have a goal that has been kind of the basis of our social media program that we started 5 or 6 years ago. We wanted to create as much of an outreach as possible through as many platforms as we could, because when the disaster hits and we need to let people know what's going on right away, we want to be able to reach as many people through as many different platforms as we can. So we have social media accounts for the police department via Twitter, on Facebook. We're on Nextdoor pretty consistently. We also have the newsletters and the e-signups through the city of San Ramon on the San Ramon webpage. On their homepage, there's e-alerts that come through there. We also have our emergency notification platform, which is a text message notification system. It's also a reverse 911 system if you want to enter in your home phone number. We have the capability to send messages out through all of these different platforms because our goal is when we need to get people out, we want to let them know as fast as possible. When a crisis hits, whether it could be evacuations as a result of a wildfire, if there's an earthquake and we've got dangerous situations, we need to get people out. Evacuations in those scenarios are handled by law enforcement and the jurisdiction that covers that area. So we will take the lead on the evacuations because our goal, specifically when we're talking about wildfire like we are today, our goal is we want the fire department to get out there and do that dangerous job of going right after those fires. So we will take over the evacuation part of it. We will handle that. The biggest part of that is letting people know what to do and where to go. So that's why we have this messaging platform set up, because we want to reach as many people as possible. For the city of San Ramon, we've never published evacuation routes. We get that question quite often. And one of the reasons why we've always resisted that is because in California, we don't know where the disaster is going to be. The wildfire may pop up on one side of the city, or a fire could be on the other side, or we may have a massive earthquake and a pre-published evacuation route, maybe an overpass that's down going over a freeway. So we rely on current, accurate, and precise information when we're telling people where to go and where they need to head for their evacuation. So we will utilize that network that we've created to be able to get that message out to as many people as possible. And like I said, we're fortunate in that we have a great partnership with the San Ramon Valley Fire Protection District to accomplish all these goals. And 4 years ago, a little over 4 years ago, we started up our Joint Communication Center, which is something that's been even more instrumental in that communication and that partnership to be able to be on the same page when a crisis does happen. So all of those factors together really give us a good platform to be able to get the message out to people whenever they need it, in the moment's notice when that disaster is striking, and communication is of the essence.
Great points, Denton, great points. There's also a radio station you can tune to. So what station should people go to if they want to get the latest information?
There is, and that's a great point, because even though we've set up this network, we always want to make sure we have that redundancy in place. So AM 1610 is our local emergency broadcast frequency. And in the event of emergency, we will update that frequency with current evacuation information and status on the critical incident that's going on. Right now, if you tune into it, unfortunately, you might hear my voice just repeating over and over again. So if you want to go to sleep, tune in, but don't do it while you're driving, because that would be a bad combination. But it is our emergency broadcast frequency, and the purpose for that is just to create the redundancy, because even though people may not think about radios in their house anymore, everybody's got their Spotify on their phone or whatever it is, but anytime you get into a car, the car still has that AM frequency, and you can get in that car, turn it on, and you can hear the message of where to go. So that's one of the things that we will always update as a backbone for that redundant communication for the whole community.
Thank you, Captain. Chief, you guys spend a lot of time and a lot of energy getting ready for potential wildfire disasters. In fact, I think you've put a lot of resources into analyzing how you'd fight different fires from different directions. Share with residents how I think you've approached this in a really thoughtful way in advance.
Yeah, so well, if I may, Mayor, just real quick, I think it's important. Captain Carlson did a great job of communicating our ability, his ability to help us communicate. I just wanted to also mention that we have an emergency alert system too that'll come across your iPhone. So I don't know, Chief McNamara, did you have a comment on that real quick, just to close the loop there?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, there you go.
All right. I was just going to add, if people go to their iPhone under notifications and then scroll all the way down, there's three columns where it says government alerts. You can get Amber alerts, emergency alerts, or public safety alerts. That will ring through your phone, make a very loud, obnoxious noise,
Yes,
even if
it will.
you have your phone on vibrate. And that to me in the middle of the night is what will wake me up. It makes a noise that you cannot, sleep through. So I just wanted to pass that along. Unfortunately, my phone's gone off. It seems like I'm in the Marsh Creek territory and Marsh Creek Road area, and it went off the other night. I was in Vacaville the other night, and it went off there. So that's another good avenue to help support the local police departments or sheriff's office.
Yeah, and then the only other thing I was going to say is on PulsePoint, it's free. Just so people know, that's a free app. And to Captain Carlson's point, I think it's a great point. I just tell you, when the internet goes down and with what's going on in this country over the last 6 months, I think nothing would surprise us, and we get so hunkered down on our phones. That AM station is huge. Transistor radios, that's one of the things we tell people to have. So great points, Captain Carlson. As far as being prepared, and I apologize for digressing, Mayor, just wanted to close the loop there. But as far as being prepared, I'm gonna let Chief Drayton talk a little bit about our hazard abatement program. We go out there, we notice people. You've seen, as we get towards the wildland season, you've seen the signs up, giving people deadlines. I know this year, before I turn it over to Chief Drayton, I know this year there was some frustration by folks because we're telling you to fix your hazards, do your 100-foot clearance, make sure you got your fire safe, and yet you're not allowed to go outside. So I hear you out there. If you're one of those people, we were as frustrated as you were with that. Unfortunately, as we found out, and I said at the time when we were taking the complaints, fire doesn't take a break. So we got to still keep moving forward. So I'll turn it over to Chief Drayton on hazard abatement real quick and how we've been doing with that.
Thanks, Chief. Every year in about the April timeframe, we identify about 20,000 parcels throughout our district that needs to be abated. We notice, we work with the property owner. We're flexible if due to rain, late season rain, or like the COVID, we'll work with the property owners to prioritize and take our highest risk parcels first. Let's get those done, and then we'll work our way down the list. Generally, we want 100% compliance by the 1st of July, just before the 4th of July, so we're not kind of chasing stuff during that time. But and post-July, we spend a lot of time revisiting because of regrowth. We want to make sure these parcels stay at what we call adequate defensible space. So if something does happen, we at least have a chance to protect the residents and be able to get people out of their homes. It's almost a 360-day, 65-day a year process because we're always evaluating it and looking for our high hazard areas. And that's pretty much does it.
And then the only other thing I would say, we as people see these notices, just a little statistical fact, we have not fined anybody, and we have only, so that's pretty phenomenal. It's a pat on the back to the citizens that are watching. You guys do a great job. You make our job very easy. I think we have one parcel where they wanted us, they go ahead, fine us and charge us, go ahead and clean it up. We don't want to deal with it. We've had one of those a year probably on average, and we don't find anybody. So that's an important point. The only other thing I'd say in preparation, Mayor, is that we are always looking at, as much as we're in the Bay Area, you can look at the beautiful San Ramon Valley. City of San Ramon has rolling hills. One of the things I live here in this district too. I think one of the things people love about living here is you're in the Bay Area, but you don't really feel like you're necessarily in the urban, dense area. But for us, as you know, it lends itself to a lot of grass fires, vegetation fires locally. So what we have is at every station, we have what's called a wild land fire apparatus. Whether that's typed in a certain way, you might see what looks like a big pickup truck that actually has 400 gallons on the back. They can go drive up those hills and you wouldn't, it's like a billy goat, right? And then we have type 3s, which are larger and have more water to get to some of the areas where we don't have as much water capability. We also have a water tender in here in the San Ramon Valley. So from an equipment standpoint, we are up to speed. We have the highest level of training and equipment at every station that can go in and make an attack, and we are aggressive in how we deal with that. So just wanted to add that as well.
That's really important, Chief. And there's two other things I wanted to ask both you guys about. What residents can do. We know they can get PulsePoint. We know they can listen to the radio station. There are things they can do to be informed, but there's also two things they can do to actively help everything. One is to take a CERT class, and which is a citizens class to be local emergency workers, and it's on hiatus during the COVID, but you've trained over 1,000 residents, I believe, to be local emergency workers. And if you could talk about that briefly, and then I'd also like to have you guys talk about the responsibility of residents to put together their disaster relief stash of stuff at home to survive 5 to 10 days on their own. But talk about CERT, and I know that your department runs those classes.
Yes, no, thank you for that. Yeah, over 1,300 graduates so far. Really proud of the numbers that we have given the population of the San Ramon Valley. It's phenomenal how active and how engaged our community is on every level. So that is really, and I always say this to folks, as we said, we were stretched thin. Even if we weren't stretched thin, we have 45 firefighters on in the San Ramon Valley. If we get a massive wildfire, they're all going to be working that. If you are displaced, or if we have an earthquake or another natural disaster, we've only got 45 people. We think we'll get the other 100 or so firefighters coming back. And I think Captain Carlson mentioned it earlier, you have collapses, you have all kinds of things that could keep people from coming back. So we really need people to be self-sufficient during a natural disaster. If power's out, there's all kinds of things that can happen. So for us, it's very important that this CERT class, it prepares them to take care of themselves. And I think as importantly, prepares them to take care of their neighbors. Not all their neighbors are capable. So if you have a neighbor that might be a little bit older or need a little bit more assistance for whatever medical reason, it is a great feel-good neighborhood thing to do to be able to keep your block safe. So that these classes allow you the ability to be self-sustaining, stop some of the issues that could turn into bigger issues like shutting gas off, simple things like that though, not simple things, turning a valve, things that we won't be able to get to. And this class does that, as well as allows for people to be effective teams if we do need to use them to provide basic first aid and different things like that. So it's a phenomenal program, and I think this is a great time to mention it. So that's number one. Chief Drayton, you have anything to add on that?
That's
Nope.
good, Chief.
Okay, and then your other point, yeah, you have to, and we talked about the transistor radios. During the CERT class, we talk about self-sustaining for 72 hours. I think at this point in our lives, some people would argue having food for weeks would be a smarter thing to do, right? We really push being self-sustained because it's going to take at least 72 hours for any help to get to you, whether it be federal, state, or local. So having the proper food, having flashlights, having a kit that will allow you to sustain your family and not be in need of assistance for 72 hours is what we say is the bare minimum.
Yes.
So for us, it's important. And transistor radios and having the ability to get that information, because we know communication during those times are going to be tough. It's going to be really tough to get information out when everything's down. We are excited because we are prepared for that, but there's nothing better than knowing your family is taken care of by CERT classes and having the proper rations and equipment. So,
And they can go to, I believe it's Be Ready SRV, BeReadySRV.org
yes.
or .com, either one works, I believe.
Yeah.
And there is a complete punch list of things to do. And I can't overemphasize that. I think it's the responsibility of families to have at least 10 days of all that stuff, water, food, and all the other supplies. So if disaster strikes, they can take care of their families these first 10 days minimum, because they're going to be able, you just need to be able to take care of your family. Nothing's worse than not be able to feed them, or you don't have things for your young children. Just do it. Get to know who your CERT representative is in your neighborhood so you guys can team up and work together as a team. I want to thank you guys so much for taking, 30 minutes here to really talk about, and more importantly for the residents to know, how hard you guys are working to prepare us for the eventuality of a natural disaster. Something's going to happen sometime. And the police department's ready for it. The fire department's ready for it. We collaborate with the school district, with the Red Cross. We work with the county. All these organizations are actively working together. We meet nearly every month to coordinate this stuff. We have a joint dispatch, which has got to be a blessing. The first in the state where police and fire have their own local dispatch. And also the money we've invested in our communications network, where we all have radios for all agencies in Alameda and Contra Costa County, allow you all to talk to each other. And that, they found that was one of the huge drawbacks during the Oakland fire, and the investment you've made in doing that. So the community, I'll say it through me to you guys, we so appreciate what you do and the sacrifices you make for us every day. So thank you, sirs. I'll let you guys have the last word. Captain, any comments?
No comments for me. Just again, I want to appreciate my thanks to the members of the San Ramon Valley Fire Department, all the firefighters across the state for all of the work they've done. I mean, it really is, you talk about over 1 million acres being burned in 10 plus days is just mind blowing. So thank you. Thank you.
Chief Myers, through you for the rest of your group.
Yeah, I'll speak for them. Hey, thank you for having us, Mayor. It's always a pleasure. And again, great partnership with Captain Carlson, the police department. They do a great job. We're very fortunate to serve this community. We're honored to serve them, and we'll continue to work in as hard as we can to make sure that this community is safe and we're ready for anything that comes our way. So thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. You guys have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.